Welcome back to Cablevision's Hudson News Edition. I'm Sherry Carabin. It may seem hard to believe, but it's almost time for kids to head back to school. It's not a time they all look forward to, but for some children it can be more difficult than for others, especially if they're starting school for the first time. Dr. Gabriel Kaplan, Director of Psychiatry at Hoboken University Medical Center, joins me now with some tips for parents trying to ease their kids' fears. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me back, Sherry.
Now, what is going through the minds of kids right about now?
Well, for some kids, it's truly exciting to go back to school. They're missing their friends. They're looking forward to seeing everybody again. For other children, and this is a minority, but for other children, many times going back to school could be somewhat traumatic, especially in the context of a child having an anxiety disorder. There's an entity called separation anxiety disorder, and these are children who, for a variety of reasons, they could be genetic, but they could be environmental. They're having anxiety, and as part of that anxiety, they don't want to leave home. They don't want to leave their parents behind, and they're having trouble getting to school.
Now, is this especially true for kids who are starting for the first time?
Well, interestingly, there are 2 points in the child's life where these problems seem to be more acute. In the 6 to 9-year-olds, so sort of starting at school, or when they're going into middle and high school in the 13 to 16. And at these 2 modal times is when you see the higher frequency of school refusal.
And why is this?
Well, it's not clear why, but it has to do with either a vulnerability, an anxiety problem. It could be something related to something going at home, moving from a town to another town, the loss of a parent or somebody loved, or some financial situation. So all these seem to be precipitants to school refusal. Now, school refusal can also be due to other things that don't have to do with the child per se. If there's something going on in school, if a child's being bullied, if somebody's trying to sell drugs to this kid, if there's some sort of thing going on the school, then it has to be resolved by the school authorities, and it's not something related to the child himself or herself.
So those are tangible reasons.
Yes. And so when that's not there, and part of the assessment is to figure out whether that's a problem or not, there are many things that parents can do, usually with the help of a mental health professional. The first thing you do is you reassure your child. You go with your child, you get the new tools, the new pencils, the new colors. You may bring your child to school the first day, and you just try to help them go back to school and reintegrate. If that's not the case and the child continues to refuse school, it's not a good idea to let the child do that. Immediately you should seek professional help, because the longer that the child refuses to go to school, the more difficult it is for them to go back. So with the help of a professional, there's talking therapy that could be very helpful, behavioral therapy, behavioral positive reinforcement. But for some children for whom the anxiety is really very, very high, you might need medication, and you may also need special education and special settings that are prepared to actually deal with a child's anxiety. So there are specialized schools. One of them is the New Alliance Academy. But there are many other specialized schools where there's an integrated treatment, psychotherapy, medication, specialized teaching that will help that child succeed and be educated.
Now, what role does the parent's attitude play in all of this?
It is very, very significantly important, because often a parent and there's no parent who wants to see their child suffer. The child is saying, I don't want to go. Sometimes the child throws such a tantrum that you feel there's something horribly wrong, and your tendency is to want to let the child stay home. As I said before, this is not recommended, because the longer you do that, the more difficult it is for that child to reintegrate. So parents really have to get the help of a professional therapist or a physician, and really tighten the belt, and just for as much as it can be painful and difficult for the parent, just bring the child to school with the help of all the treatments.
Do some parents experience their own type of separation anxiety?
Well, interestingly, separation anxiety can be found in adults as well, and it's part of that separation or anxiety spectrum.
So they could be transmitting that over to their kids, or transferring that over to their
kids.
Well,
what I would say is that what's going on is that the parent who has anxiety problems of her own or his own is going to feel more frightened of taking that child to school than a parent who does not have anxiety.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining me here today to discuss this.
You're very welcome.
And if you would like more information about school refusal, you can contact the New Alliance Academy at 201-225-0046, or log on to www.newallianceacademy.com. And don't go away because we'll be right back.